Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Finish More Music podcast. So I am delighted to be joined by an FMM member, Jonas Klugel, who also produces under the name and DJs under the name Azpecialguest. Very accomplished DJ, absolutely blowing up. He's now following suit with his productions. He's had a huge 12 months and really keen to start digging into his journey so that you can hear what he's been up to and how he's achieving these amazing things. Jonas, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And what an introduction.
I know, I do my best. But I mean, it's all true and more, as we're about to find out. So I think that kind of moves us into a really nice place to start, which is actually, let's start at the end. So where we are right now is kind of the end of the journey to date. And just talk us through kind of what you're doing on the DJ front, the releases, the music. What's the landscape in your world look like at the moment?
Well, I have what I would call two jobs. I have my regular job and I have my music job, if you can put it like that. So I have plenty of things to do on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I work as a city planner in a small municipality in here in Jutland. It's close to the German border in Denmark. And then when before I go to work, I'm in the studio, and when I get home after work, I'm in the studio. And now that COVID seems to have kind of letting the party life come back to life again, I started to get some bookings in and gonna play a couple of gigs the next following month. So busy life.
Yeah, so you've talked to me a little bit about the DJing, because you've been doing that for a while now. You've played some amazing parties. Sort of give us an idea of where you DJ and the kind of things you get up to.
Yeah, I mean, I've been DJing in, I guess it's like 12 or 13 years now. And I've been playing in the States, in Mexico. I had a small tour in Mexico before COVID hit. I'm playing regularly in Copenhagen. Well, if you can say that after 2 years of COVID, but on a normal basis. I'm playing in Berlin in 2 weeks, Hamburg in 4 weeks, and then going to London to meet you and some of the FMM guys. And when I get home from that, I'm going to attend an award show because I'm nominated for Best New Danish Artist of 2022 at the Club Awards event here in Denmark. And then the week after, I'm playing with Hans Bieger at the Culture Box.
There we go. Nice. It keeps coming. Once you got going, you're like, actually, yeah, I'm playing all over the place. Yeah. And maybe you'll get some gigs in London when you're over as well for the meetup, which would be great. And now on the production front, it was your first release, wasn't it, that hit the #1?
No, my first EP release.
First EP release.
Yeah. So I had my first release in March last year, 2021, and then I had a second release. I signed a second track, and then had my first EP signed, and that got released in like summer last year. And I guess it was beginning of September. It actually hit the #1 spot on the Beatport Techno, Raw, Deep, and Hypnotic release chart. So one of the smaller Beatport charts, but hey, a #1 is #1.
Totally. I mean, and that's it. Everything sort of trended up massively in the right direction for you. And I mean, this like the awards ceremony and DJing coming back to life, playing, and these aren't small parties as well. I've seen a lot of the videos of you gigging, and there's a lot of people there. These are like big parties, outdoor festivals. It's awesome. So if we rewind now, and it's kind of like one of these movies where you see the end bit, we've given you a glimpse of that, and now we're going to give you all the pieces to get you there. But if we sort of jump backwards to the moment where I guess you're DJing and you start to get interested in production, what was that like? And let's sort of piece together the journey from there up until current day.
Well, it's a long journey and with a really slow beginning, because in 2011, I was in New York starting my my production journey. I went to school over there in that called Dubspot. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was like super cool DJ music. I mean, if you think New York and just add music, it was just everything. It's super, super cool. A lot of hip hop DJs, some DMC winners, and that was a really, really cool place. So I learned the basic of Ableton. Then I got home and nothing really happened. Well, I did a couple of bootlegs and some mashups and had some fun with that. Yeah, then nothing happened for a long period. I have a master in geography, and that took like 2.5, 3 years of my life, and that was really no time for music in that period. So when that was done, I started up again, and I took some online courses, and I think I created like 2 or 3 tracks before finding FMM, and the tracks wasn't, but they were made, but I'm sure not sharing this to anyone now because they're not good. But hey, a track is a track. And then 2.5 years ago, I discovered FMM and started to listening to your podcasts.
Here you are now.
Yeah.
How cool.
Because in that period from New York till 2.5 years ago, there wasn't really that much to talk about. I played a lot of gigs, and I bought some gear, some drum machines, and I remember I bought the Dave Schmidt Tetra synth. For a beginner, that is probably one of the worst synths you can ever buy because you have to dig down in different layers and go up again, and it's like, whoa, this is really, really complicated. But one of my heroes had it, and I saw a post on Facebook like, okay, I need that one, which obviously I should have spent my money on something else because it just dig a hole for me that I was like, okay, I'm frustrated, I'm confused, and I'm definitely not writing music. So it was a really strange period. Nothing really to report from that other than a lot of it was a mess on the production front.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of questions if I can on this. The Dubspot course, how long did you say you were in New York for?
2 months.
So right, okay, 2 months. So there's obviously the time and the investment. And what did you imagine would happen when you came out the other side of the course?
I think that I would be able to at least write some music that I could play, and also get a bigger understanding about Ableton. The Ableton part was really, really cool, and I really enjoyed the time there. Of course, it's New York, but I learned a lot about Ableton, all the technical stuff. But I kind of feel that I never really learned how to write a track and finish it. So I guess I've been searching for that until I found FMM. Like, how do I finish my tracks? How do I get out of the 8 or 16 bar loop, or, oh, look at me, I'm jamming with all my expensive gear that I, at the end of the day, don't know how to work with, but it sounds good for these 12-second, 20 seconds on Instagram or where else I would post it. But finishing a track wasn't really happening.
And I know you've talked about before, you know, you're well connected through the DJing side of things as well, that you had kind of friends who were producers as well. What was how were they doing? How were you related to that at the time?
They were blowing up. It was, I mean, I remember that I was in the studio with one of the guys, and I just, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that, and then so we turn this one up and we turn this one down, and I was just sitting next to him. I was like, sure, if you say so, but I didn't really understand why and what we were doing, because it was just going so fast, and I was nowhere on the same level. So even though it was super inspiring, I was also like, okay, this is so above my head, and I have no idea how to go home and add this to my own process, to my own workflow. So I actually left being, okay, cool track, but I'm really frustrated about how I can add this to my own workflow.
It's really interesting, because I'm sort of asking the questions about this because it draws an exact parallel with my experience. So, you know, you will know, for the benefit of other people who might not know, built quantized courses from the ground up to be one of the most successful online schools. And people came out the other side of doing a course. It could be 8 or 16 weeks, and some of them had success, but actually lots of them didn't. And that's what got me interested in this stuff. And it's precisely the reasons that you're talking about. Like you know, I would be giving people what I would now refer to as a long list of technical ingredients and skills, which have their place, but without the underlying way of finishing a piece of music. And again, similar to your experience, I guess, with watching people in the studio, people would learn how to write a piece of music. They would get feedback from me depending on their level. Sometimes I would pretty much write the entire track for them throughout the course to get it to sound how they wanted. And ultimately you'd see how it's done, but ultimately you end up with, number one, a long list of technical skills. And if you're not then consistently putting them into practice, you forget half of, if not more. I think it's like 90% you lose, I think, is the scientific research on it. 90% of the stuff that people would like watch on YouTube or learning courses, if they're not regularly finishing tracks, is gone, which is a bonkers statistic. And probably, I guess most people can relate if they're in that situation. Just think back over the last year, how many tutorials can you remember? And then you're like, oh, that's kind of scary. So there was that. And then there was obviously the bit where they'd see me building stuff throughout the course, and then I'd work on their own music, but we just go into that thing of copying is not the same as creating. And so if you go away and then you try and write your own piece of music without the underlying creative process that got you there, and the why is it that those decisions are being made, then you end up, as you're saying, it's sort of, okay, there's 12 seconds or whatever, you know, a loop. Well, now what does it need? What can I add next? And then without the underlying what's really going on here, I think it's mind kind of goes blank, and then like go and do something else and come back and start something new tomorrow because I don't want to look at it. So yeah, it was really interesting hearing that. What would you say were the sort of biggest challenges that you faced along the way?
I think that was actually a mental thing, because I could see some of my friends really going like releases, getting bookings, and really leveling up big time. So I was like, okay, I need to be in my studio. I need to make things. I need to do it now. And so I was stressing myself and trying to force myself to be creative in a way that, I mean, imagine you're a race car driver and you need to win the race, but you have no idea how to start the engine. You know what all the different part of the car is doing, but you cannot start it, and you're like, oh, I need to figure it out, and you're just stressing yourself, and you're not going anywhere. And it was kind of like the way I felt it, like, okay, I need to be in here because I need to be creative. I need to do this, do that, and I ended up doing nothing. And I actually ended up finding excuses for not to be in the studio, because I felt like I was a failure when I was in here in my studio, because all the other guys are just, and I'm just sitting here and posting stuff on Instagram.
Right. And you sort of mentioned about having all the gear as well, that you've got around, being surrounded by it all as well.
I remember a friend of mine, a big shot, Dennis Horvath, when I bought a Prophet 6 a synthesizer, and he was like, oh, nice, you bought another dust collector. And that was, he was totally on point with that. And that is just something that stick to me, like, oh, it hurt, but he was spot on. It really was another dust collector, because I was taking a picture of it, put it in on Instagram, and that was it. I wasn't really using it because at the end of the day, it's a really complicated synthesizer. And I could probably have spent my money more wisely than blowing in them on a complicated synthesizer like that.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Yeah, that's some comment, isn't it? But I mean, good.
He's a great guy. He's super helpful, but he was just spot on with that comment.
So yes, sometimes the things that hurt are the things you need to hear, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. So obviously, it sounds like you've mentioned a kind of stressful, difficult time full of a lot of self-doubt. What was the breakthrough for you? What sort of flicked the switch? Because it happens for most people. There's one or more things that just kind of flip things over, and then the momentum really builds from there.
I think that for like 4 or 5 years ago, I started to take some point blank courses, another music school, and some of them were really, really good. Some of them was like, nah, it wasn't really working for me. And that was something happened that I started to build something that could look like a track, but it wasn't really doing all of it. And then I stumbled upon your podcasts and FMM, and because I couldn't be part of the group, because you're only open like once a year, I had to deal with just using the podcasts. And I heard a couple of them, and then I had to hear all of them. I mean, that was, I mentioned this to you a couple of times before, episode number 12, All the Gear, No Idea. And that was just frighteningly spot on. I mean, I felt like you was talking directly to me, even though you don't know me, you didn't know me at that time. But it was like, oh, I wouldn't say crying, but I was close to, because I would, oh my God, that really hit a nerve. And I was laughing a bit, but it was more like, it's not you don't laugh like it was a funny joke, more like it's like, I'm
kind of nervous laughter.
Yeah, because it was so damn spot on. And I really love buying gear. I love buying plugins. I love buying guitar pedals. I play with guitar pedals in my DJ set, and I really like to, okay, I need that one. I want to explore this one, and you were so damn spot on with all of it. And I could just, whoa, this is tough. And I heard it a couple of times, and I think till this day is the podcast, the one of your podcasts that I heard the most, because I still buy gear and I still have to remind myself, like, yeah, but the gear you have now, you haven't touched on their limitations yet. So just dig in and be a better friend with it than you are now. but that was that podcast was really something. And then a lot of all the podcasts, but that one is really the one that is most clear to me. I have a forest nearby that I could walk in, and I've been walking around in that, listening to a lot of your podcasts, and I'm glad I was alone, because people would think that I was breaking up with a girlfriend or something just by my facial expression of listening to that podcast.
Wow.
it really changed everything, for sure. It really
means the world to me. I mean, to hear the impact, and not to hear, you writhing around uncomfortably in the forest, obviously not that bit of it, but the fact that it had an impact and sort of, changed the way that you were perceiving things and what you were doing? Because, you know, you'll know more than anyone that the saying, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And so those shifts where we let go of the things that aren't serving us well, and I kind of liken that to having a full glass of water that's like cloudy, dirty water that we don't want to drink, and we have to pour some of that out in order to fit the crystal clear water in there. We need to empty the stuff out that isn't serving us well. And those kind of breakthrough moments where it's like, okay, this thing is actually disempowering me from reaching the goals and the ambitions that I've got, letting that stuff go is as important as the stuff that we're going to learn, because something's got to give for the new perspectives to come in. So then what were the things that actually got you regularly finishing your music? So for example, in the last we're 2 years, how long is it now?
Yeah.
How many tracks have you finished, just to give us a benchmark?
I don't have the exact number, but I guess I'm about to hit 100.
Right, amazing. So what kind of got that machine working and firing on all cylinders?
I think it's a couple of things. First of all, when I was added to the community, I made a promise to myself that, okay, you're jumping on this train now, and you're just gonna follow it and just see where it takes you. And if you're jumping off right now, it's just gonna leave you behind. So I made a commitment to write music every single day. And I actually did that for 487 days straight.
Wow.
I was aiming for 500, but I was building and promoting a party, and there was a lot of stressful things about a party like that. So I forgot, and I was like 1:30 in the night, like, damn it, I forgot to write music today.
Oh man, 487 is as good as 500. My gosh,
Yeah.
who's going to split hairs over less than 2 weeks in that period of time, you know?
Yeah, but also, I mean, the commitment was there. It's like, okay, now I have the opportunity, dig in, just be part of it. But also, I mean, you created this super cool system that just makes it so much easier for me as a creative to just, you know, the expression, I like to have all my stuff in the air, all my opportunities. Like, yeah, but if they're in the air, you have absolutely no control of them. So just put them down, put them in order, and just go from left to right. That's how, at least how my mind is working the best. Like, I know where to, I need to know where to start and where to finish. And I need those boundaries to help me be creative and productive as well. And then I stopped buying gear.
And that's interesting, because that's sort of the balance that over the years of refining the system has been all about. As you said, part of being creative is to be able to have stuff up in the air, because it's, you know, there are lots of new ideas and things that are happening to us. And then the other part is saying, well, how can we direct that and actually focus it? And I always use the metaphor of sort of the lantern, the torch, and the laser beam. The laser beam is exactly what I was talking about before. Watch somebody do a thing and then copy that thing. Well, there's no room in a fine laser beam in which to innovate. And that was the thing that sort of really struck me back when I was doing quantized courses, and I was sort of saying, well, I don't want to continue doing this. And I was looking around and going, you know, my course is like so many of the other courses that are out there, and I can see people are leaving this and they're not carrying on. And creativity is a journey. It's like it's a lifelong choice. It isn't 8 weeks and then everything's okay. And so I was just like, you know, what do I do to be the difference that makes the difference? And that, hence, you know, the years and years of studying and researching that built FMM. So it became clear that the laser beam isn't the answer, but then the lantern, which is sort of all the things up in the air, is quite weak in terms of its, you know, you seeing in front and you actually getting the results that you want. And it's not great for creativity either, because it's just this big round ball of weak light. And so it's kind of like the torch. It's how do we have direction, be able to, you know, see this thing right to the end, and have that space in which to innovate and be creative and play and do all of those things. So it's like amazing to hear that that's really landed. And the other thing I did want to pick up on was your mention of personal accountability, because it don't matter what systems put in front of you and how many, you know, people this thing has worked for. You know, that saying, right, you can hire the best personal trainer in the world, they can't do your press ups for you.
Oh.
So it's huge kudos and credit to you, the way that you came into FMM and said, no, I'm committed, I'm dedicated, and I'm going to do this thing. And you know, if you work the system works. You don't work the system, then don't bother. Essentially, you know, nothing ever will ever work for you if you don't take personal accountability. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I think that's awesome. And throughout the time we've been working together, you've brought that to every single interaction and everything you've taken on, which is a huge piece of the puzzle in your own success, you know, your personal accountability. So then what was the impact like when you're doing this? You're obviously now finishing the tracks and getting the results. What was it like being in the studio? Because you talked about avoiding the studio previously, which is totally understandable if it's a place where, you know, emotions and pain and self-doubt tend to be coming to the fore. Why would we want to be in there? What was it like once you start getting the results?
It's way more fun to be in here now. I mean, I still have days where it's like, I don't feel it, but there are fewer and fewer of them now, and they're still there. And I would be lying if I said that sometimes I like, damn, I really don't feel it today, but I just have to. I mean, I'm one of my focus this year is trying to take a break once in a while, because I kind of feel like I need to be in here. I need to be creative, and it's not a need thing for being here, but I like to be in here, and I kind of feel guilty if I'm not, because I know what it took a while to realize what it takes to be part of this, like releasing regularly and be better, and hopefully release on some of the bigger labels at some point. So I need to, if I want to have this dream and I want to follow it, then you have to put in the work. So I kind of find a way to have the fun in my studio and still get my work done. And I think a lot of that is limitations, because if I have all the opportunities and if I had all the synthesizers in the world, then what? They're still not writing the music for me. So I still have to do it. And I think the biggest fuel for being and put a lot of hours in here is when someone or myself is playing my music to an audience. I mean, I remember it was a couple of weeks ago, and a friend of mine just told me like, oh yeah, I heard your track in the radio. I was like, yeah, like Danish national radio. Someone played my track, and I was like, that was really cool. But someone else have heard it and was like, that was one of your track, right? And then he told me, oh yeah, and I have some friends who you got to meet them at some point, and they are some bigger DJs than I am, and they are supporting my latest release. And I was like, woo! I was high as because that was just like, whoa. I mean, it's super cool that someone is buying my music for support and all that, but some bigger DJs are playing my music because they like it and they think it fits in their DJ sets. That is, I mean, if that's not motivation, then nothing is. I mean, if you can have that kind of impact on and we as DJs are a specific breed. we are quirky, and we are weird at some point. So if someone who plays regularly like my tracks, that's a bigger proof stamp for me.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's super cool to see you sort of keep hitting these different benchmarks as well. And as you said, with the studio, at the end of the day, you know, creativity, sometimes the muse is there, sometimes it isn't, sometimes we're in the mood, sometimes we're kind of not necessarily in the mood. But I think it was Stephen King who talks about the importance of showing up, because you don't know when the muse is going to arrive. So, you know, get in there, and then, as you said, which I think is great, you know, there are always ways to make it fun and to appeal to your intrinsic motivation. And, you know, whether that's setting a limitation of you using the one synth and sort of appealing to your creative nature of exploration, or whether it's, as you've mentioned, seeing progress, being able to say, oh well, you know, I've hit that benchmark, I've hit this thing as well, and looking backwards at where you've come from to measure the gain and not the gap. All of those things, there are always tools that help to light us up even when we're not feeling like it. And pretty much when you leave the studio, even if you didn't feel like it, you're pumped because you did it. But the interesting thing that I'm really picking up on is, at one point it was like having it, if you and the studio are magnets, and having them turn the wrong way so that you can't push them together. They're like resisting each other, and now they're the right way, and you're like you're always pulled to being in there. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I made a commitment that I have to be at work somewhere between 8 or 9 every day. It's flexible, it's super nice. So I could easily just get up at like 7:30, get my breakfast, and then go to work. But I have no idea how my day will turn up, and I might end up not going to my studio that day. So I get up 6 o'clock every single morning, and get some breakfast in the studio for at least half an hour, and that is non-negotiable. It has to be done. And then I have like an hour, half an hour workout at the gym at work, and then I go to work. So I have to get up. It also makes it easier to get up early because I have to go in the studio. So it's kind of a win-win. I get up early to do my thing with music before I go to my other work. And I mean, if you have to get up early to go and do something that you really don't like to do, if you have like a job you don't like, or you have if you have to go to school and you don't really like the school, it's really difficult to get up early, because I have to get up and do that thing, horrible thing. But if you get up early because you have to do a fun thing, or something at least you know that is part of the building blocks to something bigger, it's so much easier to get up early in the morning. So it's like, okay, I'm tired, but you have to get in the studio before you go to work, so get up.
I love it. Exhilarating reason to get out of bed. It's like an amazing thing. So now that you're, you know, creatively you're flowing, and all of this kind of baggage, I guess, that you were carrying, you've moved past that. How has that affected you as a person?
I've become much more happy outside the studio. I mean, if you have friends who are progressing and you're not, every time there's an update from one of them, it's like, oh, you just got it just sits in your stomach, and you just become grumpy, like old and grumpy in seconds. And you're gonna take that with you everywhere, because it's just how, I mean, at least that's just how I work. And it was really difficult for me to see how everyone was progressing and I was not, and I was just being mad about it. Not on them. I mean, they do the job, and nothing. I know that nothing comes easy to them. They still have to work hard to get it, but they were doing it, and I was not. And I was feeling jealous because they were doing all the things that I wanted to do and I couldn't. And I didn't know how to do it. That was probably the biggest challenge, because it was not that I didn't want to do it. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. So when I started to putting the pieces together, and I just feel more happy basically, because all the frustration wasn't channeling out in my everyday life. I mean, I can still be frustrated that I couldn't get the sound out of the synthesizer, but that is what it is, and I can leave it when I leave the studio. But being frustrated of not progressing at all. I mean, I still want to progress, and I feel that it could go faster. And once in a while, I just have to remind myself that it's going really fast compared to where you were 2 years ago.
Just think of the last 12 months.
Just relax.
It's the human condition, isn't it? I want
to go faster.
I'm going at 200 miles an hour. I want more.
I want more for sure. But I mean, I was like, dude, relax, because you're really progressing crazy at the moment, and it will come. Just embrace it. But it just, I feel so much more happy, and I'm not that grumpy anymore. I still get grumpy, but that's I guess that's part of life. But it's really had a positive effect on my everyday life for sure. That all those frustrations they're not gone, but they are. I can control them. And I would say at least half of them are gone, because now I'm doing what I was frustrated that I couldn't. So that is that has had a huge impact for sure.
Amazing stuff. I love it. This feels like so much lighter, and I've obviously, seen the change in you myself as well. So I did at the time that we're recording this anyway, last night, I was jumping on live, and I was talking about something that had really sort of crossed my mind about not necessarily the importance of community, but how I have noticed over the years that every pro producer has a network of peers. There isn't a single pro producer that you'll find that doesn't have a network of peers, and that they've relied on them since the beginning. It's not like they wait until they're successful. It's actually a fundamental, essential, non-negotiable component in their development and growing. And anyone who sort of is really isolated and struggling on their own tends to stay there. Pretty much exclusively, they stay there. And this idea of community and surrounding yourself with peers, I wondered what your thoughts are on that, if you could speak to the impact that that's had for you.
It has had a huge impact. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in Sønderborg now. I used to live in Copenhagen. I have a lot of my network in Copenhagen, a lot of friends, and it's like 3.5 hours by train from here. So I'm musically a lot alone down here. So I don't really have like a network here that where I can talk to people about music and stuff like that. It has to be online, and going in the FMM community and ask questions and get good answers, because you can ask questions in every community. But I feel that with the FMM community, that you get some answers that you can work with. I mean, you get some, you don't get that, oh, it's a nice track, but the mixdown sucks. It's just, I've seen that in so many groups, and it's like, oh, that sound is just, I don't like that. Yeah, but what about the rest? And I wasn't asking about my mixdown. I was asking about like the flow of the track, or the build up, or the breakdown, or something. I really don't care about the mixdown right now. So why do you? Because, and we all know it, because it's just the easiest answer. Oh, it doesn't sound good. It must be the mixdown. So your mixdown sucks. Yeah, it might do. I haven't mixed it yet, but that wasn't my question. And when you ask questions in this community, the FMM community, you just I mean, people in there are so happy to help you. And so I guess some of them would lose an arm if that was necessary for helping you, because they go a long way. I mean, I've seen some answers to some questions, and they are long. They are really, really long. It must have taken like an hour to write that answer, and there are links to videos, or I guess I've seen someone just record themselves explaining because it was just too difficult to do that on text. And I haven't seen that in any other groups that I've been part of. And I remember I was like 2 months in the group. I wrote, I was sitting with a track, and I felt like, oh, it's not really going anywhere. And the frustration was building, and I feel like, oh, not again, this is not going anywhere. So I wrote a message and with a question, and I guess within the first half an hour, 6 people that I've never talked with before, and I didn't knew in the community, was just like, hey, try this, try that. It's not that bad. If you try, you could try that, and that would be better, or an improvement. And it's always this, and well, it's thanks to you and your system, but it's always so progressive. It's always so positive. It's, I mean, yeah, it's a bad track, but what can you do to make it better, instead of it's a bad track and then try this and that, instead then flipping it and like, okay, this track needs to well, you can try this and that could improve this and that. So it's always this positive mindset of building on the foundation of where the artist is now. Because I mean, we all write bad tracks, but as I think it was Nick Muir who said, who are you to judge what other people think about your music?
Yeah.
And it's spot on, because I mean, we all have different taste. And when I buy music for my DJ sets, and I buy my music supporting the artist, that's important. It can take, I spend like 5-10 seconds on a track, and I know if, is this for me, is it not for me? Because I have to go through so many tracks. And some of the tracks are hitting #1 on the main chart of Beatport, and they are not for me, but they are for so many other people's. So it's so spot on when you cannot judge what other people think about your music. Also, you cannot design your music so people will like it. You can design something that you hope people can like, but you cannot force them to like it. Well, I guess if you put a gun to their head, they will say they like it, but music is a feeling. And if you feel the track, then you feel the track. If you don't feel it, then you don't feel it. But you can go in and enhance the production. You can improve the drums if they are a bit weak. We can add something to them to make them stronger. We can add something to make the melody stronger or the harmonics better. But it's a feeling. It's not. There's not a
right or a wrong answer.
Yeah, there's not a right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that's the other sort of thing, just to build on your point, that's great, is that it's, and obviously, you know, this is what I teach, because giving feedback is so powerful to both parties. Like when one person teaches, 2 people learn. It is the same when it comes to giving feedback on music, because you're enhancing your critical listening skills, your creative problem solving skills, you're contributing to other people. So there's a huge growth factor. So, you know, as you know, I'm big on teaching people how to do these things and how to help. And as you said, there's the quality side of things that we can improve on. And then there's the taste side that then becomes about, as you said, hey, have you considered maybe you could take it in this direction, or perhaps you could take it in that direction? I've read my track, I've got this idea that you could pretend, and then that's for you as the artist to say, does that resonate with me? Or actually, you know, I'm not feeling it. I'll try a few of those things and then see if I'm feeling it as well. And it really is that, you know, as we talk about built on collaboration and not competition, and the fact that everything that we want to achieve, and we have, and I'm really proud of it in the community, is it's a safe space for creatives that builds people's confidence, and not at any point is there anyone ever in there who's going to knock someone's confidence or take them down a peg. So everyone feels safe to share and to ask questions and to put their music up. And, you know, when I say I'm really proud of what we've achieved, I mean the community. I don't just mean, oh, you know, my team and I mean everyone who contributes to this. I think it's phenomenal. So it's amazing to hear, you know, that's your experience and that's how you're feeling, because you know, that's exactly everything that we're always pursuing and driving towards. Okay, amazing stuff. So I'm going to ask you the question. You know it's coming because every guest gets it. Don't matter who you are. There's no escaping it. If you were to jump back in time to, you know, the moments where you were at the beginning of your journey, and you've sort of, you know, talked about the struggles and the doubts and all of those different things. If you could jump back in time and give yourself one killer piece of advice, something that you'd love to share with everybody that's, you know, you think would be useful on anyone's journey, what would your killer piece of advice be?
Since I'm in Ableton, it's going to be an Ableton advice. The synthesizers and whatever you find in Ableton, they're good enough. You don't need to buy shitload of stuff, hardware, gear, whatever, because the stuff in there is what you need to start your journey. And we've seen, I mean, with the pros you invite in with masterclasses, some of them are only using Ableton stuff, and they are big, some heavy hitters. And some of the Ableton stuff are so basic and is so easy to work with. So just stick with that. You don't need to buy that specific plugin or that EQ. And I mean, at some point you might need another EQ, but there's so much goodies in Ableton. So just start with that.
Yeah, it's amazing advice. And, you know, as you said, you're an Ableton user and you've sort of focused it there. It's true of any DAW, you know, yeah. We've had pros in using Cubase, Logic as well, using pretty much the entirety of the stock plugins, sometimes nothing else, as you mentioned. You can get great results. And, you know, when you think about the 36 dB guys, Dave Gardner and Barry Jameson, Sasha's producers, we've had them in the community a few times showing stuff. They've got these new templates and things coming out, and these things sound like huge pro quality tracks, like they release 110% stock plugins.
It's so annoying to see them do that with just stock plugins, and you're like, yeah, but I just spent a shitload of money on these plugins and they're doing the same with Ableton.
Yeah, I know. But it is great advice, because it is that thing of thinking, oh, when I've got this thing, then I'll be able to do it. When I've got this thing. But when you can see that there are pros who are doing it without these things, it's clear that it isn't the gear. And we know all these people walking around who are like encyclopedias of music production knowledge and know every topology of compressors and everything, who aren't getting what they want to do. You know, they're not finishing tracks, they're not getting it. So we know the encyclopedia of having to know everything isn't the answer. You know, yourself, probably, I know almost everyone we speak to in FMM won't say that you've got some God-given talent. So it ain't that either. It's simply the system and the, you know, the people you surround yourself being a part of the system that makes the difference. Creativity is a way of operating. It's not a God-given talent. It's not gear. It's not music theory genius or any of those things. It's simply the way of operating and the system that you follow. So I think that's an amazing way to tie this up. Last question, of course, is what's coming up in the future? What are the plans? And maybe, in fact, perhaps an even more interesting question that we didn't touch on. What are the ambitions? Like, what the 3 years, 5 years? That would be a great way, I think, actually, to round things out.
I want to travel some more with my music. It sounds a bit weird, but I actually, the best thing about playing gigs in another country is when I'm at the airport leaving Copenhagen, because there is all the tension, there is all the excitement, because we all end up playing bad gigs once in a while, but you don't know that. So before you leave, go on the airplane, it's like, oh, this is just so exciting. So I want to feel that some more, and hopefully the next couple of years can help with that. But yeah, I have a couple of tracks that I hope that I get signed to some interesting labels. And yeah, let's see where, with all the open air parties and summer parties, that hopefully there's going to be some gigs for me to play this summer, and hopefully for the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, no,
No more COVID, hopefully.
I've without that, I have every confidence in it. You're killing it on the DJ front. As I said, I'm fortunate enough to work closely with you and seen your exponential rise. The quality of the music continues to go up, getting more interest from the labels and stuff. And all of those things are hand in hand, as we know, with the DJing now, and the releases gets the bigger and bigger parties. So like, I've absolutely no doubt with your dedication, discipline, and as we talked about, this idea of personal accountability, you're going to smash it. And I get to say that because I get to watch you closely from the outside, without all the stories and the stuff that we always internalize. And I'm not a betting man, but if I was, my money would be on you for sure.
Thank you.
Jonas, legend, thank you so much for jumping on the episode. Like, super candid. You were like amazing with everything you've shared, and talking about how you feel and the emotions and the doubts and all of those things. It's a wonderful gift to be able to share that with people. So a huge thank you for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
My pleasure. Take care, buddy.
Bye.